Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Taking the Lead. And this is where I get to share my friends, my associates, those who have influenced me, who are wonderful leaders. Most are from the world of PR and communications. But the most important thing, and the reason we're here, and the reason I asked them to share their insights, is because they are respected leaders. That's the main thing. So let me introduce you to someone who is a fellow Newhouse Syracuse U's grad. He is Joe Cohen. He's the Chief Marketing and Communications Officer of Axis Capital. And I got to say, we always love when the PR person becomes not only the Chief Communications Officer, but the Chief Marketing Officer. That's a victory for our side. Previously, he was the Chief Communications Officer there at Axis Capital. Prior to that, he was a Senior VP of Communications at Kind. You know them for Kind Bars. And for years and years was Senior VP and really grew a lot of his career at MWW PR. And we are so excited to share with you Joe Cohen. Welcome, Joe.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Ken.
My pleasure. So we're going to dig right in. You're the Chief Marketing and Communications
Mhm.
Officer, as we said, for a multi-billion-dollar company. And we had to delay this chat. We had planned to have it around a month ago because, like many people working from home, you had a nanny issue. Nanny wasn't there. So, like, what insights did that give you about leading when employees are working from home and maybe you have nanny issues or other issues?
Yeah, well, I think part of it, and we've had at different times throughout the year, we've had to be without a nanny, and my wife works full time. I work full time. We have a toddler, and we have a 5-month old and my wife was pregnant for much of the pandemic. So I think that just having that experience um, made it that much more visceral for me that I have to be mindful of what my colleagues, what my team members, our different audiences and stakeholders, what they're going through. And I think that it's at times it was tough and disruptive for us, but a lot of people have it way worse. And I think that having empathy, and also being willing to be vulnerable and also share with people what you're going through at home, I think from a leadership standpoint, I think it makes you a more effective leader and enables you to understand and connect with people. And also, I think just as a colleague and as a person, it helps you be more understanding and just uh, bridge tighter relationships.
Yeah, great points. We had talked earlier off camera about, are there some benefits to what we've all gone through? And I happen to believe we can find good, we can find opportunity in anything. And I think leaders who have dialed up their empathy with their team members, from the experience you've shared, definitely makes them more effective leaders and makes people want to follow them. So that's one of the many good things I think, despite all the bad, and there's plenty that they've gotten. So let's talk to that specifically. What leadership tenets either have risen to the top or have you really, you know, learned or used through the COVID-19 crisis?
Sure. Well, I think that if I were to talk about COVID specifically, I would say adaptiveness, and that's something that, to your point, there's with COVID, there's so many awful things happening in the world that are either directly related to COVID or that have been triggered or brought to the forefront, such as some of what we're seeing with social injustice and racism and just a number of challenges that we're seeing across the world, and particularly in the States. And I think that at the same time, there is opportunity. And I think that as a marketer and as a communications pro, understanding that there's companies need to reach their stakeholders in different ways. And as you transition virtually, it creates a vacuum. And there's a chance, if you're able to move quickly and if you're able to approach it in a smart manner, you could connect with your customers or business partners in ways that you hadn't before, and you could potentially outpace the competition or move faster than them. So I think being able to pivot, being able to innovate, and just look at different ways to drive your business in a forced digital environment, that's an opportunity. And I think also for us, at different times within Axis, looking internally within the organization, we saw that our colleagues had different needs. And something that I feel that we did a solid job of is that we stepped up our internal communications. We work to become more transparent, to make people feel comfortable bringing their whole selves to work in a different way, make it acceptable that you may have kids, pets, relatives in the background. Everyone's being welcomed into each other's homes, and life happens, and at times it's going to be tough. And I think being able to understand that is essential. So I think as it relates to leadership techniques, adaptiveness, empathy, and showing vulnerability, letting people know that you understand and appreciate the challenges they're going through, and being willing to open up when you're going through your own. People have suffered losses. We suffered the loss of an immediate family member in the spring, and yeah, as all this was ramping up, I think having those moments where you connect with people is, I think that's part of leadership. I think also grit and work ethic. Like many teams that work in marketing and communications, there were periods in April where we were working to rapidly scale up or manage through office closures, different issues and crises. And there were many weeks where my team and I were working 18-hour days. And you couple that with all the other factors, whether it's, both spouses working full time, having kids. For a lot of people, a lot had a lot worse than us. There's many caregivers, multiple deaths in the family. So I think having that work ethic, having that grit, coupling it with adaptivity, coupling it with empathy, and showing vulnerability, those are all part of the qualities that I think are important, and that at different times I try to tap into.
Those are great points. One that's really resonating with me, they all do, but the notion of vulnerability, because I think there's a school of thought out there that leaders should not be vulnerable. And I've always felt and always, talked about, no, show your humanness, be vulnerable. If you don't know, say, I don't know. That humanness creates a connection, and it really encourages your followers to want to follow you more. I think it's magnetic, and I'm glad you're willing to share about that. You've mentioned Jamie. You are a PR power couple and two of the nicest people in the business. So tell us who your wife is.
Yeah, my wife, Jamie Schwartz Cohen, she's an SVP of nutrition at Ketchum. Very proud of her. Just a rock star unbiased, but a rock star in the industry.
Look at that smile on your face, man. That tells us all you need to know. Okay, jumping back, as we said earlier, you've dreamed the dream of many PR and communications pros, again, by being named not only CCO, but Chief Marketing and Communications Officer at Axia Capital.
Axis.
Axis. I knew I was going to do that. Well, A and S are near each other on the typewriter, so I'm attributing it to that. So at Axis Capital. So, how did your leadership skills create that? Not your PR and comms and marketing skills, which we know you had, but how did your leadership skills create that, make that happen?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I would say I'll answer that through two lenses, lenses. One would be mindset, and another would be just looking at leadership skills and practices. I think as far as mindset goes, looking at approaching your work through the lens of being a business strategist. And I think this is something that was ingrained in me coming up in the MWW system and learning from people like Michael Kempner and Corrine Winters and Rich Tauberman. But I think that making sure that you understand the business, how it works, how it makes money, and also what the role of your functions are in helping to advance bottom line business objectives. That was something that was always the way I operated as a communications pro. And of course, that's table stakes when it comes to marketing. So I think that just coming in with that mindset is essential. And I think that's something all communications pros should do. As I mentioned, focusing on delivering value, and I think data and analytics and being able to speak the language of the business. So those are all just different characteristics that I think are just important and essential. As it relates to leadership and leadership skills specifically, I think part of it would be being an effective counselor to the business. And when you go in house, I think it's important on the agency side. I think it becomes doubly important, triply important, and it's something that I believe, after having been in house now for 6+ years, my conviction has increased in making arguments, knowing when to take a stand, and really being willing to put your neck out when it comes to making big bets as it relates to communications and marketing. Empowering my team. I don't need to be the expert in everything. When we combined the marketing and communications functions, I was very candid with my colleagues who joined from the legacy marketing function that I'm not classically trained in marketing. I've been parts of integrated marketing teams for 20 something years. So I understand the discipline. I have an appreciation for the discipline. And I have a lot of experience working in marketing campaigns and integrated marketing campaigns, but I am going to tap into their expertise, and that's what makes us a stronger team. So I think committing to the growth of my people, something that is important, not just as it relates to communications and marketing, but making sure that as we're looking to innovate, as I mentioned, in an environment where we could test and learn with virtual marketing, giving opportunities to people so they feel vested and excited. And also, we made the decision within Axis of combining marketing and communications into a fully integrated function. And part of it is my own philosophy that something that began a long time ago, over a decade ago, was that the lines had blurred between the disciplines. So it doesn't make sense to bring them apart. And it delivers value to our people and helps them grow if they're able to swim in both lanes. So, and I think part of this also comes down to building a culture where people are transparent, where there's no drama, where it's results oriented, and the idea where we're not going to create artificial walls or silos. So, and then the last would be, and not last, I mean, it could be the first, is encouraging diversity. So bringing in people who have different talents, different backgrounds, racial, ethnicity, which is a big challenge within our profession. So taking conscious actions to combat that, bringing people who aren't like me and working with people who aren't like me. And I think there's some truth to the idea that classically trained marketers and classically trained communications professionals have different skills and different mindsets, and you want to bring out the best of both and blend the skill sets. So I think just running it back, being a strong counselor, empowering my team, committing to the growth of my people, and looking to find opportunities to drive innovation, building a culture that combines the best of both functions and making it one culture works for us, and really promoting and encouraging diversity. So that's a long answer. I hope that's helpful.
It's perfect, really, because it really proves that, and I've always said this, it's less about PR and comms and more about leadership. And that includes, understanding the business, and it includes how you are as a leader. And I think for today, especially, diversity and inclusion will benefit. And if we're leading in those and some of the other areas that you mentioned, to be proficient in PR and communications is in a way easier when we're doing all those things. And I also want to just, point out what you mentioned about not needing to understand everyone and everything that reports to you, but trusting the leaders under you and trusting that they know what they're doing, and delegating and truly empowering them is really critical to your success, to their success, and I think to the organization. Last, oh, good.
I think understanding at a high level is important,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
appreciating. But to your point, Ken, there needs to be a level of trust where I don't need to know every detail.
yeah,
And if we have a great team and we believe in our team, which at Access I'm very fortunate. I have a team that I trust, I believe in. Just classic leadership advice: set them up for success, give them what they need, and if you have great people, get out of their way.
yeah. And here's the thing: when you do that, and when they feel that you trust them,
Mhm.
in addition to all many other benefits from that, they trust you. And if they're going to follow you, If we want followers to follow the leader, they must trust the leader. They must know the leader has their backs, and I think that's absolutely essential. And we start by trusting them, right?
Yeah, and Ken,
Instead of,
if I may add one other
yeah,
item that I
please,
neglected to bring up, that's
yeah,
table stakes also,
yeah,
is having a data-driven mindset, being able to show value through reporting, being able to back your arguments with data. That's something that I think the marketing profession has done a much better job of than the communications profession. So I think that in general, with the advent of Comtech in recent years, we've gotten better within traditional communications, but that's essential to to driving any level of success.
yeah. I think, and so kudos to you. You actually had mentioned it earlier, so that's good.
Oh, okay.
But good, but it's good to reinforce it for our viewers. But this notion of the PR person saying, "I don't like math, I don't like numbers, I don't like,"
Mhm.
you just, whoever is thinking that, you
Yeah,
just got to stop it, because you cannot serve the organization, you cannot serve your leaders and clients if you can't prove what you do, and that is all about data and metrics. And so
mhm.
we must become more proficient in that. last
Absolutely.
last question. So you've talked about what got you through initially through the crisis in these months, but clearly, even with the vaccine, this feeling of, I don't call it challenge, but uncertainty. Things are not to normal yet, and who knows what that normal will look like, when it will be. But that said, what leadership tenets are you tapping now to get people through this sort of ongoing uncertainty, which can lead to some exhaustion in a way that, March, April, May, many of us were so pumped and fueled by the crisis, and let's get through it. And you were all able to work those 18-hour days because you knew you had to. But now it's a different kind of feeling. What are you tapping now to get you and your teams through the next few months?
Yeah, I think I think some of it I already spoke to. I think big parts of it are being flexible and really listening. And I I try to and investing the time to talk with your people. So I try to get in touch with every single member of my team, um, at least at least once, if not more, every other month, just to see how they're doing, and including people, and this means people who I don't work with closely, who have their own managers and whose managers have their own managers, just so I could understand the pulse within the team, how people are doing, stay attuned to larger issues, and also just I think be able to provide help, because people are, as we started with the top of the call, people are going through things. So I think part of it is showing that there's care from management just by making that outreach. This of course connects to listening when those calls happen, doing less talking and more listening, so that way I'm able to understand how people are feeling and show that I care. And of course I'm doing it because I care, and I think it's essential to do. And then as it relates to flexibility, once you get those insights and get those ideas, uh, deciding where you need to make adjustments, and if people need uh, special items to help them get by, whether it's things at home, whether it's more flexible work arrangements, a myriad of things, being willing to flex to help your colleagues get through tough situations. And we mentioned there's sickness, illness, mental health, deaths in the family. During all of those times, really being there for your colleagues. Those are all some of the things that are just part of this ongoing challenge.
Yeah, I think that's so important because what, people are responding to all of this differently, and
Mhm.
some are doing fine. If you have a team of 20, 17 may be doing okay, but there may be three that are
Mhm.
struggling.
Mhm.
And those three, you've really got to search them out. You've really got to talk to everyone, because in the Zoom call, in the group meeting, in the Friday pizza that's virtual, if they feel 17 of their peers are doing just fine, they may not want to acknowledge the struggle. So I think we as leaders have to do more one-on-one to
Mhm.
understand how everyone is doing. And there may be some who were fine March, April, May, because they literally got adrenaline from fighting this new crisis. and some were maybe okay during the summer, but come fall and kids, and is it virtual or is it hybrid, or are they in school? There may be people on your team who are feeling challenged right now.
Mhm.
It's so important to keep reaching out on an individual basis and find out how they're doing, and what do they need from you. And if you can listen and be empathetic and give them what you need, what they need, excuse me, their performance goes up, and their loyalty to the organization and to you as a leader is, it's just unlimited. I think it's just unlimited. So great points. Thank you so much, Joe. We could go on longer, but we're not going to, because you've got to get back to work and fatherhood and all those good things. But I so appreciate your spending the time, and let's end by saying go Qs, go Orange.
Go Q's, absolutely. And I
Take
appreciate
care.
you, Ken.
Thank you. I appreciate you back. Bye-bye.